has launched National Infrastructure Pipeline in 2019. These investment plans are expected to boost demand for construction machinery sector in coming years across applications. This webinar will provide you insights into overview of infrastructure projects in India, development status quo of major projects, and opportunities for German investors in Indian construction machinery sector. Friends, as you all know, this webinar is part of series of webinars we organize under the Make in India Stand program. The MIM program was initiated by Embassy of India Berlin in 2015 to convert the intent and part of the German businesses in India. So far, the program is run on behalf of our embassy by EuroAsia Consulting as a knowledge partner, supported by a network of competent partners such as Rodelin Partner, Ketan & Co. as tax and legal partners, IGCC as the partner chamber, Deutsche Bank, KfW, and SBI as financing partners, Global Innovation and Technology Alliance of CII as technology partner, Invest India, the official government agency for investment promotion, and 9 Indian state governments are also program partners who assist with regulations and permission issues to facilitate investments. MIM program has completed its 6th year in August 2021, achieving 151 onboarded middle-stand member companies and facilitating a declared investments of more than euro 1.46 billion. We welcome German companies to take advantage of this platform and provide us the opportunity to help and expect. With that, I would like to wish you all interesting and fruitful discussions, and thank you once again. Over to you, Mansi.
Thank you, Mr. Chauhan. So going forward, we have a couple of presentations lined up. To begin with, we have first Mr. Rajesh Nath. He is a managing director of VDMA India. He has total 31 years of experience in various industries in Germany and India. He has been accorded by highest civilian award from the German president, and the name of the award is Cross of the Order of Merit for his work for promoting Indo-German trade in engineering sector. He comes with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, which he has completed in distinction. He has also completed a business management degree, and he also holds an international business program, which he has done from the reputed Indian Institute of Management, ZOCA, in 2004. Mr. Nath joined India office of German Engineering Federation VDMA as general manager in 1999. And since 2008, he is heading the organization as managing director. During this period, the organization has grown sixfold, and number of VDMA members now stands at around 600 in India. So with this, Mr. Nath, I would like to request you to kindly start your presentation, and over to you, Mr. Nath. You can share your presentation.
Thank you, Mansi, and thank you, Manish, for the good introduction and setting the tone for this event today, for this webinar today. So friends, my aim is to give you an overview on the construction industry, construction market in Germany and Europe. So I would run through some statistics with you, and I hope this will help you to see where the construction market in Europe and in Germany is heading for. As Manish rightly mentioned, I think infrastructure will play a big role in India, especially considering that the government is giving importance to the National Infrastructure Pipeline. That's a huge project from the Indian government. And this would also help actually to boost the core industries like the steel, cement, and equipment industry. So friends, let's have a look at the development of the construction equipment sector in Germany. So as you can see, friends, that in Germany, the pandemic certainly impacted the construction equipment industry. There was you could see in this graph also, especially in the period 2020, there was a huge dip. But then the rebound, I think that's very important. The rebound was equally dramatic. And you can see we have the statistics for the first quarter of 21. It has been a very strong rebound in the construction equipment sector. Just a minute. Yeah. So coming to the construction equipments, if we look at the various equipments, largely building construction, earth moving, and road construction. So here, friends, we can see that in 21, if we compare first quarter 21 with the first quarter 2020, there has been an overall increase in the order intake by about 46%, which is, I think, phenomenal and speaks again or reinforces strongly this aspect that there is a strong rebound. Now, looking at the construction equipment sales in Germany, now, friends, certainly we saw in 2020 there was a dip. 2019, as you can see, was a very good year. But 2021 also it is picking up quite well, and we could see that it is just at the moment, as per the first quarter, 2% below the previous year. So I think there is a lot of potential and hope that the construction equipment industry in Germany also grows in the years to come. Now let's look at the European market. What is the scenario in the European market? So largely, if we leave out Germany and France, all the other European countries actually have been doing quite well, except Spain, which has seen a dip. So largely one could say most of the European Union countries have actually seen a very robust growth in the first quarter of 21, comparing it to the 2020. Now, a quick look on the global scenario, friends. How would the construction equipment market look globally? And here, as you could see, all the regions actually are showing a good growth in the first quarter 2021 when compared to 2020. And in fact, the world sales is up by 31% as all regions grow. And if you look at India, 52% growth, and India's contribution to the share of the world total is about 5%. Of course, China is the big player with about 34% contribution. Now, just coming briefly to the Indian construction equipment sector. So friends, actually Indian construction equipment industry didn't do so badly. In fact, they did reasonably well, but there is, because of the projects, Manish, I think, gave a good starting point mentioning about the government spending in infrastructure, and that would help actually the construction equipment industry to grow, and there is an expectation that this would grow by about 20%. Of course, there is also then the rural India factor, which will help in this growth story. Now let's look at the construction sector, friends. As you can see here in Germany, we have the confidence indicator, and certainly in 2020, we have this, I think, quite a steep dip if you look at the graph. But I think 2021 things are looking much better, and that is where I think the growth would also be, and that is where the rebound, we can see a good rebound coming. Now, looking at the construction sector in Europe, again, you would see all the countries were basically impacted in 2020 because of the pandemic. But after that, some have been really rising rapidly. And more or less, one can expect that by 2022, if we take the base year as 2019 as 100, so we can see most of the countries will pick up after 2022 and would in fact surpass the pre-COVID levels. Of course, the growth looks a little different from country to country, but overall, I think it's a very positive scenario. Indian construction equipment industry or construction industry, friends, also took a very sharp dip, as you could see. It is really a nose dip, but an equally dramatic rise. And that's why we are so confident about the V-shaped recovery, what we've been talking about, the V-shaped recovery in India. And how does it look if we take a little longer or a long-term perspective? Certainly, friends, the industry took a hit, it took a beating, but then I think the rebound also has been good. There are supply side constraints, availability of materials, certain equipments, costs, input costs are increasing. But I think overall, it is a very favorable investment climate. And the big question, however, would be like in India also, it's largely been driven by the government. The government spending is driving the infrastructure sector. And that's what we've seen in most of the countries, that it's been largely so. When these initial phase of spending or the stimulus money dries up, what would happen then? But 2021, I think, is looking quite positive. Globally, we are expecting a growth of about 10%, Europe 10%, Germany about 5%. 2022 may not look so good as of the present forecast. There is expected to be a dip of 5% in 2022. And friends, I would just like to conclude giving you an overview on VDMA. VDMA is the German Machinery and Plant Manufacturers Association. We are the largest industrial association, not only in Germany, but in whole of Europe, having about roughly around 3,350 members. And the turnover of the VDMA members, friends, is 205 billion euros. And it's a 129-year-old association. And the photo on the left side is of our head office in Frankfurt. And besides Germany, then we have an office in Europe, also in Belgium. But beyond that, I think VDMA is the only German industrial association which has such good established presence in the BRIC countries and also in Japan. So with that, friends, wishing you all the very best in your business for 2021. Let us look at optimism for 2022. And I'm sure that later on the speakers will also highlight the growth story in India. And as the German Engineering Federation, we and our members would like to be part of this growth story and are contributing also to the manufacturing industry in India. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nath, for throwing light on the German construction equipment market. Next, moving on, I would like to introduce Mr. Utsav Rakshit and Mr. Abhishek Bansal from Invest India, who will be presenting overview of India infrastructure projects in India. Mr. Utsav Rakshit, he is working as associate for construction at Invest India. Prior to this role, he has been working in equity capital market in Europe and India. Utsav has done his master's in finance from University of
Unmesh, I think there's a little bandwidth issue.
I think so too.
Yeah, maybe the colleagues could start, I think.
Hello.
I think there was an issue, Mansi, on your end, and we lost you in between. But I think our colleague from Invest India, Mr. Utsav, can start on his presentation.
Sure. All right, I will share the presentation for you.
Thank you so much, Mansi. I'll switch off my video and speak because there's a bandwidth issue from my end too.
Yes, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can. Thank you. So I'm going to speak about the construction sector in India. Next slide, please. Thank you, Mansi. So the construction industry in India is expected to emerge as the third largest globally by 2025 with a CAGR of 7.1%. It generally consists of two parts, real estate and urban development. The real estate segment generally covers residential, office, hotels, and leisure parks, while the urban development majorly includes water supply, sanitation, urban transportation, and schools. Indian real estate nearly attracted around 5 billion institutional investments in 2020. The construction equipment industry revenue stood around 6.5 billion in 2020. The construction is the third largest sector in terms of FDI inflow in India, and it included $50.8 billion from April 2020, from April 2000 to 2020. Under the 100% FDI route, it is permitted to compete on projects, operational projects, township, malls, and business construction. Here at Invest India, we work very closely with our line ministry, that is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, along with associations like CREDAI and National Association of Realtors in India. Next slide, please.
Mansi, can you also put this on full screen mode if that's possible? I think it's Alt L or Function L.
Thank you, Mansi. So in this slide, I'll talk about the major key driver for the construction, that is real estate. So Indian real estate market is estimated to grow at 19.5% from 17 to 2030 and expected to reach around $1 trillion by 2030. It will also contribute around 13.5% of country's GDP. It is the second largest employer after agriculture sector in India. Increasing real estate GDP would be supported majorly by industrial activity, improving income level, and urbanization. Government scheme like Housing for All initiative is expected to bring 1.3 trillion investment in India by 2025. Also, the real estate index transparency ranking improved by notch to 34 in 2019 due to regulatory reforms, better market data, and green initiatives. In terms of investment is concerned, FPI investments in Indian real estate stood around $497 million in 2021. And the segment also invested a lot of private equity investments, around 19 deals worth $3,000 million, and it grew 16 times more in 2020. Blackstone, which is one of the biggest private equity investors in India, manages around $50 billion right now, and they're expecting more $22 billion in the next 10 years down the line. So there are three major segments in the real estate sector in India. First, the residential, which contributes around 80% of Indian real estate market. Second, commercial space, which includes office, warehouse, and industrial parks. And third, the hospitality industry. Next slide, please. Thank you, Mansi. So the first part of commercial real estate is commercial real estate, which includes office spaces, and it is mainly driven by IT BPM, BFSI, consulting and manufacturing industries. Moreover, we have seen many new companies are planning to foray into Indian market due to huge potential in relaxed FDI reforms. Also, we have seen Grade A office spaces to absorption increased drastically in 2022, supported by NCR. We have seen $47 million investment in 22, driven by strong e-commerce and manufacturing, along with demand from emerging tier 1 and tier 2 cities. Overall, private equity investments in Q4 FY21 resulted in 71% market share, along with 21% in retail and 15% in warehousing sector. The second key impact is residential real estate. We have seen home sales values grow up 2 times in October 2020 compared to last year. The residential sector is also expected to grow significantly, with central government aiming to build 20 million affordable houses in India under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is supported by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Also, expected growth in number of housing units in urban areas will increase the demand for commercial and retail spaces. Rapid urbanization bodes well for the sector. The number of living people in urban areas is expected to reach 525 million by 2025 and 600 million in 2036. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thanks, Utsav. See next slide, please. So we thought we'll talk about the construction equipment sector from a policy point of view. We've been working very closely with DHI, and in 2016 there was a national capital goods policy, and the idea was to have a policy framework in the country as to what are the steps which are needed to boost exports, to upskill the country from a technology and an infrastructure point of view. And although the expectation setting was done in the right way with the capital goods policy, I do want to highlight some of the incentives and policies which are applicable overall from a capital goods point of view and might be applicable for construction equipment specifically. Mansi, next slide, please. So firstly, we have remission of duties and taxes on exported products. We got a lot of feedback from the industry that the taxes like stamp duty tax, mandi tax, electricity tax, which are being charged on exported products, and that makes our products not very competitive on a global scale. So what this does is it gives back a certain percentage of the FOB value of exports back to the exporter, and it has been well received by the industry. We are hoping that our Indian exporters will be able to compete with companies on a global level and help gain some of the export mileage from a construction machinery point of view as well. The second scheme I do want to highlight here is the export promotion for capital goods scheme. This is obviously spread into 3 different parts: pre-production, production, and post-production stage. The basic idea is to again allow companies to have a duty-free import of capital goods subject to an export obligation of 6 times the duty saved, spread over a period of 6 years. The third scheme I want to highlight here is the custom bonded warehouse scheme. This is one scheme wherein Invest India gets a lot of interest on a month-over-month basis. We help close to 50 to 60 companies every month to set up a custom bonded warehouse. The idea is any facility or plant in the country can be designated as a custom bonded warehouse. And Mansi, next slide, please. Companies can basically have a percentage split, 40-60 for, let's say, domestic and 60% for exports. Any finished products which are exported out of the country, raw materials can be imported duty-free, and finished products which are being used in the country, the raw material duties are deferred to a later date. And this again helps global companies to export and be competitive and also serve the domestic market at the same time. Although these policies are just indicative, Mansi, next slide, please. And we as Invest India are also working with the DHI, various line ministries, to have more investor-friendly policies. But the basic idea is the new India is evolving. It took us 14 years to reach a cumulative FDI of $300 billion, 4 years to reach $500 billion, and only 2 years to reach $681 billion. And we are only going to grow exponentially from here. This is all we have today from Invest India's point of view. We'll take any questions from the audience. Mansi, over to you.
Thank you, Utsav and Abhishek, for sharing insights on the infrastructure sector in India and throwing light on the policy framework as well. Moving on to our next presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Unmesh Lohite who is working as a principal with EAC EuroAsia Consulting. He is currently heading industry competence, industrials vertical, and functional competence, operational excellence uh, in EAC. He has total 17 years of experience in supporting German companies, including the metal stands, for their market entry and other topics in India and SEA market. Ulvish has done his mechanical engineering and he has also done his MBA from Pune University. Ulvish has demonstrated experience in supporting European and OEMs in construction equipment space for market strategy, comprising industry analysis, opportunity assessment, and also implementation topics. Ulvish, I would like to request you to please share your screen and start your presentation.
Thank you, Mansi. And just a slight confirmation from your side, if you can see the screen from my side.
Yes, Ulvish, I can see. Please go.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Mansi. And also, I think the stage is pretty much set after the presentation from Mr. Rajesh Nath from VDMA and also from Mr. Utsav and Abhishek from Invest India. And first of all, before I start, I would like to give a warm welcome to all the participants in the webinar as representing EAC as a knowledge partner of this particular program. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be presenting on opportunities in Indian construction equipment industry today. And the things which I plan to cover is basically with regards to showing about the strong growth fundamentals, which our speakers earlier have already covered in terms of the sector development and infrastructure push, diving a bit deeper, sector-wise initiatives and targets in construction, how it leads to opportunities in the construction equipment industry. I think also Mr. Nath touched upon this. What are the growth prospects? But also to highlight some of the important aspects of the closing gaps in terms of emissions and safety norms. And lastly, how we as EAC in management consulting domain or space in India, we have witnessed certain best practices for success in Indian market. We would like to bring forth some of them over here and highlight lastly the India opportunities and support what EAC can provide to all the OEMs coming in India. If you look at the page, we see a very strong correlation between the construction investment and the GDP. And what we see is there is going to be growth in this construction equipment up to say 186 billion euro by 2026, and which will contribute almost 9% to the share of the GDP. What it means is an investment requirement to the tune of almost 3.8 trillion euro. I'm sure some of the numbers were also already shared. India to become the third largest construction market globally by 2025, also the largest FDI recipient. And as a matter of fact, also the construction equipment industry revenues set to grow in this regard. What the government has done, and also some of the speakers spoke about it, is the infrastructure push. What it means is there is a clear vision from the government side to make Indian economy a 4.3 trillion euro or a 5 trillion USD economy by 2025 by providing an infrastructure push by investment of around 1.2 trillion euro with almost 7,700 infrastructure projects planned across sectors. And very importantly, if you look at the bottom of the page, it's basically driven by center and state with equal share of 39%, but very importantly, also from the private sector, which brings in the compliance to the timelines and demand, and which, according to our assessment, will drive the construction equipment demand. Some of the more prominent sectors in terms of the construction equipment, if we look at, say, roads, the power, railways, ports, and airports, the overall infrastructure segment contribute around 60% of NIP, almost 698 billion euros, comprising of 3950 projects. So you just can imagine the quantum of requirement across the construction equipment that will be happening. And to drive on this particular point, let's also dive a bit deeper into these sectors. So if we look at, say, the road construction and energy, what is the status? What are the targets in terms? So road construction, pretty high performing segment with current 230 kilometers per day construction, expected to reach at almost 259 to 60 kilometers per day, with particular focus on increasing the budgets. Also, very attractive EPC or hyper annuity models being deployed by government to encourage or to ensure the timely completion of these particular segments and encourage private participation over here. And if we look at the energy, it's basically looking at the number of projects which will be growing at, say, 4% CAGR till 2025. The energy needs of the markets are to grow to 450 gigawatt on clean energy sources. It will drive the respective demands for this equipment across excavators, rollers, finishers, cranes, and so on. And also, not only in terms of road and energy, but also if you look at the seaports or the airports, there has been a targeted activity and optimized logistic efforts or costs by connectivity across coastal and landlocked areas. This is till 2025, so which will further drive the demand of the equipment. Now, let's hit the equipment industry. What are the opportunities, what we are talking about? Having looked at the fundamentals, pretty strong fundamentals in the Indian construction space, we thought of presenting it in three particular aspects. One is the growth prospects, of course, of the construction equipment industry, driven by the infrastructure development, government support, and drivers, but also about the closing gaps between the regulatory aspects of emission norms and safety norms, and bringing forth some of the best practices, as I said, in terms of local value chain, in terms of right fit distribution approach. What are the opportunities? So let's look at the growth prospects of the construction equipment market. Now, if we recorded a sales of 74,000 units in 2021, and is expected to grow at 11% till 21-26. And the industry is valued at 5.4 billion euro currently and comprises of almost 500 companies, both domestic and international. The industry is maturing with the adoption of Bharat Stage 4 norms in terms of emission, as well as adopted safety norms, which are bridging the gaps with the European standards. Also, there are established exports in terms of earth-moving segments, which comprises almost 63% share. And as you see on the right side, there are presence of some leading global companies in the Indian market in terms of JCB and Case and Schwingstetter and so on. So what are the drivers? So one is, of course, the booming infrastructure. The GDP share is expected to be 9% by 2026, plus the strong focus on infra development to grow the economy to a 4.3 trillion economy, as I said earlier. Very importantly, the government support, as also my colleague, my friends from Invest India said, almost 1.2 trillion euro investment through NIP. And more so the push for the local manufacturing in terms of PLI schemes of worth 23 billion euro across sectors over here. And lastly, very importantly, the private partnership, public-private partnership, wherein the private participation is expected to drive the timeline compliance and demand, which has been, say, the perennial problem with this particular industry. Also, there are certain challenges within this segment, what we have experienced, but what is very important is market players have came up with a very interesting risk mitigation strategies in Indian market. So common challenges in terms of price volatility, raw material prices, and so on, lack of skilled labor. or say a very typicality about India of lack of leasing and used equipment market over here. Very common delays due to land acquisition, or say difficulty in securing funds, and a very common challenge between the supplier and the OEM of fluctuation in demand and volume. So what we understood as some of the very good or best practices within the industry is about restored to re-evaluation or modification of contracts, which shares the risk equally between the OEMs and the supplier, and also easing financing or training for lack of skilled labor. And also from the government side for managing the delays due to land acquisition, having a dedicated task force to reduce these delays. And in terms of lack of leasing and used equipment market, what we see is that the small scale contractors still have this preference for ownership of construction equipment, which is an opportunity in terms of the investors in Indian market. So, ladies and gentlemen, having seen the growth prospects, what is very interesting if we see in terms of the closing gaps, in terms of emission norms. Now, the construction equipment has adopted a Bharat Stage 4, whereas the norms in Europe are at Stage 5. And you see the gaps are pretty much closing. So if you look at the power range, of course, there is higher coverage in terms of European Stage 5, or the particulate matter or the particulate number in that sense. But there is expected that these Bharat Stage 4 will then move to Bharat Stage 5 by 2024, which will then be, the norms will be comparable to Europe. What it means basically is that there lies opportunity for European MNCs companies to enter the market, explore the setup, expand the supply chain, localize the supply chain, cater to the local demand aided by government's push for local manufacturing, and also look at India in terms of low cost manufacturing, low taxation base, with government push for local manufacturing to explore the export from this particular market to advanced or developed markets or to the nearby regions, to treat this as an export hub. So not only in terms of emission norms, but also in terms of safety norms. If you look at this particular page, the regulating authorities have right now in phase 1 of safety norms, which basically means focus on equipments like machine mounted audible travel alarms, non-metallic fuel tanks, operator visibility, and operator seat belts in terms of Indian parlance, wherein the phase 2 by April 2024, the focus will be expanded for features like noise limits for operators, yes, as well as braking system, which will be comparable to the European norm. So not only in terms of emission, but also in terms of safety requirements, the products which will be regulated and mandated in the Indian market will be quite close to the European requirements, thereby giving an advantage to European players to explore manufacturing as well as exports from the Indian market. So both these aspects of growth as well as closing the gaps of emission, what we definitely see from our practice in construction equipment is the best practices in terms of local value chain, which provides complete control as well as exhibits commitment from the OEM side to ensure market success. A case in point is JCB in India. It has localized its most successful equipment backhoe loaders almost to 97% by value, and holds a market share of 82% in India, with exports established from the Indian market. Similarly, the second aspect is the right fit sales and distribution approach. So adopting the right fit sales and distribution approach and the distribution management process linked with the type of application one company is handling, or the volumes they are catering to, as well as relationship building between the channels and dealers. So the idea is best practices of local value chain enables pull for the products, while right fit sales and distribution provides reach and appropriate service levels ensuring success. To deliberate further in this regard, let's look at the local value chain. So here is one example we have provided from road construction equipment, wherein if you see on your left, this is the high local value chain of industry players with direct manufacturing presence, also with established exports. Most popular mode with complete control. We see players like JCB, Case, Volvo, and Vidgen in this particular bucket in Indian market for road construction equipment. Whereas if you see a bit of trim down wherein there is an indirect manufacturing setup in terms of collaborations with the sister companies or third-party association, which gives an advantage of low initial investment, but with a trade-off on control. We see players like Dynapac and Bomag over here, whereas there are players like Wacker Neuson with having sales and service set up with low investments in this particular industry as well. Now, having spoken about the local value chain, also let's deliberate on the sales and distribution approach. So very in terms of exclusive dealerships or non-exclusive dealerships and no dealerships. So there is no one fit measure fits all. This is basically, if you look at the exclusive dealership, the rationale is if I am dealing in higher volumes or if I have larger machineries and I need a dealership which covers the larger area in that particular sense. So I would go for exclusive dealerships like in terms of JCB or in terms of Volvos. Or if we look at, say, non-exclusive dealerships for lower volumes to maximize the reach, I would rather give freedom to the dealerships to cater to other brands as well, but ensure that I have competent dealerships within my channel, which basically gives me an access to competent dealerships. So a case in point over here is Case and Escorts who are adopting this model. Whereas there are also stories in terms of no dealerships, for example, Vidgen and Aman, wherein the key strategy adopted over here is to have complete control over my sales, over my after sales support, although having lower volumes, but catering to higher service levels to the clients as well. So these are the right fit sales approach. And we also again deliberated in the road and construction equipment, wherein some of the stats speaks for themselves. So for example, if you look at JCB, Case and Escorts over here, you see a mid to large dealers with 4 to 6 districts coverage. But if you look at Volvo, there are large dealers with maximum 2 per state, which they cater to. Also, if you look at the number of dealers, JCB clearly leads the pack with highest number of dealers and outlets, but a trimmed down version you can see in Case and Escorts, and a very unique Volvo with large dealerships in their segment as well. Each one has its own rationale for it. For example, in JCB, it's higher volumes, maximizing the reach in urban and rural. Whereas for Case and Escorts, hindered by the lower volumes, there's a trimmed down JCB model, what you see over there. Whereas if you look at Volvo, it requires large dealers with outlets in major cities. So a right fit approach for each. And accordingly, we can also look at some of the best practices in distribution management, right from say identification with relevant industry experience to selection. A quite elaborate selection process have been identified of 1 to 3 months with systematic assessment, considering market repute, customer influence, what they have, as well as financial standing. Once the dealer is selected, to onboarding and supporting the dealers with having appropriate market potential, which they can explore in the market, as well as providing support through adequate training in terms of sales and service, and also to develop the dealerships with hand-holding in initial period, which also has an overlap with the dealership management in terms of target setting and working with the dealer to achieve these targets, to have a sustainable business for the dealerships going further. And which leads to the success factors in terms of the dealership management, if you look at this particular page, it basically calls for a long-standing dealership association. So if you look at two success cases over here, Volvo and JCB, some of the dealers have 20 plus years of association with these dealerships. Or also about an adequate dealership organization. If you look at professionally organized dealerships, case in point, road construction equipment, again, one sales engineer for 150 to 200 machines, or one service engineer for 50 machines. Also looking at the minimum equipment downtime to ensure good service levels for the customers. JCB, for example, over here, the service response time is 4 hours, or for minor repairs, 48 hours. And also looking at experiential selling. And last but definitely not the least, in terms of making available some alternate revenue streams for the dealerships in terms of annual maintenance contracts or field maintenance contracts, or say O&M opportunities, which gives dealership the sustainability of business and an opportunity for the OEM to have a long-term relationship with the dealerships. All the strong fundamentals of the industry, the opportunities of the construction equipment industry, we definitely see opportunities in India in terms of setting up a manufacturing base with surge in local demand, with rising infrastructure and construction. India's growing attractiveness with low tax rates, incentives, infrastructure and manpower. With closing gaps, as I said, emission and safety standards between India and Europe, treating India as an export hub. And of course, with India as a sourcing destination with competence and strong potential for sourcing for categories such as forging, casting, and metal fabrication. Also driven by the realignment of global supply chains in this particular case. How can ESE as a management consulting support in India in this terms is we can support clients in strategic as well as implementation topic, comprising market assessment and localization feasibility roadmap to actually implementing the localization initiatives, strategic sourcing support for machine components utilizing strong supply landscape, sourcing for local as well as local for global, distribution strategy with assessing the current distribution setup in terms of existing dealers, to assess these dealers, which dealers to continue, which dealers to reappoint, identifying the new dealers, competition benchmarking and best practices identification across value chain in terms of products, technology, also assessment and implementation of best practices in the equipment sector across strategy, distribution, sourcing, and localization. And lastly, the M&A opportunities in India. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I would like to close my speech. I thank you all for your patient listening, and I would look forward to connect bilaterally with you for any specific queries, and also will be happy to take the questions further. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you, Ramesh, for elaborating on the opportunities in the construction equipment market in India. So moving on, I would like to request all the participants, if you have any questions, kindly unmute yourself and ask the question. And also you can use the chat box on your right-hand side for asking the question. I will guide you for the session.
Mansi, this is Saurabh Sen, and
Hello.
I think this has been a wonderful session, and I like to congratulate the panelists for giving a overview as well as insight. And my question is, this is a bit of a reflection as well. The numbers on paper looks extremely promising, and I'm giving an example of my study of Indian four-wheeler market, which I was doing back in 2011, sitting in Shanghai in China. That time we were at 3 million, I think, four-wheelers market. And we are talking about going to 6 million, doubling in by 2025. And in particular that year, China actually overpassed US market of four-wheelers, and they were at 25 million, and China already crossed as the largest, four-wheeler market. And then I was also doing a study about Indian energy requirement, both thermal and nuclear, how we are, the demand will grow also for steel consumption. That will go to 300 million. I think that's the number we are talking about. Now, the 5 trillion economy by 2025, it's a roadmap already given by our Honorable Prime Minister. And when we kind of, look at the construction equipment and infrastructure, one thing is very obvious, and what Mr. Nath has also presented, that the investment is being driven by government, and looks that is, kind of quick recovery is happening. A lot of focus, number of kilometers road being constructed every week or every month. But overall equipment, projection, what we see, how much we say that, this is going to reach so and so by 2025, which is probably the nearest target for us in terms of the years left. So are we kind of, do we have all the ecosystem? We talked about the land issue. We talked about the, investment. We talked about the skill gaps in skill set. So what kind of, sense that how realistic are these numbers and where we are likely to reach when we reflect upon our performance so far have been? You take the best case example and, where we are expected. So I'm not sure who would be the best person, or maybe all of you can give your, wise view on this.
Mansi, maybe I'll just start. Thank you, Saurav, for the question. I think a very intelligent question. Saurav, as Unmesh also mentioned, we are at about, I think, Unmesh, 72,000 equipments. Is that correct? What you had mentioned briefly. So there certainly, yeah, there is certainly a lot of push from the government side, and the government spending largely is driving the infrastructure industry as well as the equipment demand. Unmesh also mentioned about the private sector's role. Now there are certain hurdles, as you rightly mentioned, Saurav, about for example, acquiring the land. That is, certain pockets are there where always there is some issue, and certain states are more rigid in this regard than the others. I think the National Highway Authority of India, as well as, so there have been a lot of changes that have happened to basically ease, I would say, the project implementations. Of course, the number of kilometers, what Unmesh mentioned also, that is perhaps one sign that things have improved when we compare it to the past few years. So I think we can all be optimistic, sort of. $5 trillion 2025, it could all, I think, shift by a few years. But I think what is really impressive is that we have a goal in front of us. The $5 trillion, now we've been speaking about this $5 trillion for so long, everybody is quite aware of it. So at least there's a very clear-cut guideline or a goal in front. Only it may be that the goalpost may shift a couple of feet behind. That is a possibility, or a couple of years. But I think we are still quite positive, and hopefully with the reboot we are seeing, it's been quite a strong reboot what India has witnessed. And also I had presented that we are seeing at least equipment growth in India about 20%, which is, I think, quite optimistic. So those would be a few takes from my side. I leave it to Unmesh and our friends from Invest India to take it further.
So maybe I will take it next. I think, first of all, Mr. Saurav, thank you so much for this question. As Mr. Nath said, it's really thought-provoking. What you're asking is absolutely quite relevant. And I can't help but second what Mr. Nath has already said. I mean, first time we see the government in a midfield position and not in a striker's position. It's minimum governance, minimum we are seeing. and that is reflected across the sectors. And NHAI, like what Mr. Nath said, the per kilometer construction of roads, what we are witnessing today, these were the numbers which were unheard of quite earlier. And not only in terms of road, but we see it across sectors, like what I presented in road, in energy, in seaports, in airports. And all this is basically coming from the push from the government, yes. And these are backed by certain initiatives which are promoting the local manufacturing base. The government has a target of 25% share of manufacturing to the GDP. This is again we can be critical about this, whether they do it in 2025 or whether they do it in 2026 or 27. The point is the direction is pretty much set. As Mr. Nath said, there is a goal in front, and we might be direction where it's heading to. So this is also my take from our understanding of the sector. You want to comment?
Thanks, Mr. Mohit. If I may add to this, so recently, there have been announcements for production-linked incentives as well for 13 key sectors. And the basic idea is, in our opinion, by 2025, $5 trillion, achieving that number shouldn't be a problem. I think we are well on track for it. In fact, right now, the bigger goalpost in front of us is $10 trillion by 2030. But also, to give you an example, if you look at production-linked incentives, let's say for electric vehicles, that's a major push around the world. And we, as in India, are looking to set up 50 gigawatt hours of capacity in the next 2 to 5 years. And setting up gigafactories not only would need all these construction equipment as well, but that's going to drive a lot of investments, a lot of exports from the country. So I think policy overall, there's been never been a time when incentives and policies have been so aggressive. Yeah. And since that change is now happening, we'll see a change in GDP, FDIs happening at a much faster pace in the next 3 to 5 years.
No, I think, thank you for your comments. And I think as Mr. Nath and Unmesh, you talked about we have a goal, we have a direction, and which is very, very important for us. And if we can do our part in the right way, and probably, of course, the goalpost might shift a bit, but direction is not going to shift. That's for sure. And I think equally optimistic like all of you that we will close the gaps and we will reach there. Yeah, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for the question, and thank you, panelists, for answering it wonderfully. Now we have reached to the end of the session. So I would like to thank all the panelists, including Mr. Nath, Mr. Lohite, Mr. Bansal, and Mr. Rakshit, for joining us today and for delivering the wonderful presentations for the participants. I would also like to thank all the participants for joining us today. And if you have any questions which come to your mind later on, you can send it to us on our embassy on the MIM hotline, that is MIM@indianembassy.de. We will also share today's presentations with you on your registered email ID with us. So we look forward to welcome you in our future webinars, which we will be planning for the month of October and also going forward. So thank you, everyone. Have a nice day ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nath.
Thank you.
Abhishek.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.